crafty friends, it's Tina the Scrappin' Rabbit, and today is release day for stamp Anniething, and this is the first stamp that we are releasing this week, and he is so cute. His name is Tommy. Thanks so much. That's what the sentiment says, and he's carrying a box of goodies, and they could be pretty much any kind of goodies you want them to be. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you what I made using this Cutie Patootie stamp set. I created a shaker card, and I packed the sequins pretty full, so there's not a lot of shaking in there going on, but I think it turned out really cute. Be a nice little card for a special little boy. And it says, "Happy birthday, dude." And then when you open it up, it says, "Wishing you a special birthday." And so I did a process video for this, so let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you how I made this card. So I'm going to use a stamping tool to stamp my image because he is larger, and I find that I get the best luck using a stamp tool. And so I'm going to also use my VersaFine black ink because I'm going to be embossing this image, and I really like how the VersaFine works for clear embossing. So I'm just putting some embossing powder over the stamped image, and then I'm going to use my heat tool to emboss him. I do let my heat tool warm up for a few seconds before I put it on the paper, and it embosses much quicker. Now I'm coloring the skin with my Copics, and I start out with the lightest to get the paper nice and wet across the front of his face, and then I'm going to go in with some shading with using some of the darker colors. In this case, my darker colors that I chose to use are E21 and E11, and I go around the edges, and I am going to add the R30 for the cheeks. And then I do blend out with the E00 and then back again with the lightest color. I do like to get more shading, and so I do put several layers across the edges and then bring it towards the center, trying to leave the center of the face the lightest as I go along. And I keep blending out until I feel happy with how it looks. I'm going to go ahead and do the neck and the arms as well. For his little tongue, I'm going to use the R05 and the R12, and then I just go back and forth to blend it out. Moving on to the hair, I do the lightest color first, and in this case it is the E30. And then I'm going to go in with my second lightest and then just kind of flick towards the center and do like a little feathering motion as I add that next shade of color towards the center of the highlight. And then going with the next darkest, I'm going to do the same thing, moving it down farther down the strand of hair. And once I have that whole section done, I will come in with my darkest color. And then I kind of reverse the process. So then I go from darkest to lightest to blend out the colors so that I don't have any harsh lines in there. And so I do repeat this, and then as I go in with the darker color, I usually will go and do one section at a time, breaking it up so that I can have better blending with the markers being more wet and not dry. And when you have lots of hair like this, I do find that it's easier to do one section at a time instead of going across the whole head of hair. And so going back in again with my darkest, blending it out with the medium dark, and then going in with the lighter towards that center of the highlight. I've had the best luck with my hair using 4 shades. I think that if you're doing larger stamping like this stamp is and you have more hair to color, the more shades that you add, the better results. And it's okay to use less colors with smaller images. I'm going back to color the ears because I realized I forgot that the first go around. Moving on to the jeans, I am using the tonal grays, the T series, and I'm starting out with my darkest color, and I'm adding some lines going in to represent the wrinkles and the dimension of the jeans, and then I'm blending it out with the next lightest color, which is T5, and then as I go in, I'm going to go dark to light for my jeans, and then blending out with the lightest color, which is the T1 right now. And then I do like to add layers, so once I get that lightest color put in there, I'm going to go back around and blend it out a little bit more, starting again with the darkest, moving towards the center with the next lighter shade, and then blending it out as I go along. I'm going to keep the cuff of the pants the lightest, and so that's where I use my T0. For the shoes and the shirt, I'm going to use the cool grays, and I'm just going to use the C0 and the C1 in my colorless blender, and I'm going to blend towards the center so it's kind of making a white, and so I'm using different shades of the gray to make more distinct colors and to make the shirt pop a little bit more. For the shirt, I'm going to go in using some blues. I don't have a lot of blue Copics yet, and so it is harder for me to get a blend because right now my colors are so contrasting. And so I have to really work on blending these out. And I have the B18, the B14, and the B02 that I'm starting with. And then later I am going to add the BG53 to add a little bit more teal because the cardstock that I'm choosing to use has more of a teal color rather than the cool blues. And so as you can see, it's going to take me several layers of blue to get it to look the way that I want and to not have any harsh lines. And so I just repeat the process, going in dark to light until I feel like I have a good blend. And the cardstock that I'm using really allows for that, so it's not a problem at all. Next I have to color the box, and so I am going to use some yellows and some greens. And what I'll do is I'll go in with my darkest and then blend towards the center of each section to where the lightest color is in the middle. And so in this case I've got my Y17, Y15, and Y11. And then when I go to do the center of the box, I'm going to move on to the greens. And those are going to be my YG17, YG11, and YG6. And so I'm thinking of a little boy birthday card. And so I'm picking colors that are coordinating with the paper, which I'm going to show you next. I'm using Doodlebug Hip Hip Hooray paper. And I'm going to move to my Big Shot, and using the Jaded Blossom card layer dies, I'm going to cut out some triangles and a base for the layers of my card. Now I'm going to cut out a banner for my sentiment and a little mini bow using Mama Elephant dies. I'm going to go in and doodle some buttons using my Jelly Roll white pen, and then I'm going to fussy cut out my little image. I'm going to put together this little mini bow, and I'm going to start by curling the ribbon using a paintbrush. I'm going to use some multimedia matte to put it together and my tweezers to hold it in place while I give it a few seconds to dry. And so I repeat the process as I fold that little centerpiece going around, waiting for the glue to dry, and then coming back in with some more glue until I can put my little bow together. This is the bow that I'm going to put on top of the present, and I think it's so cute and it's so tiny. Once I have my bow put together, I'm going to let it sit aside to dry, holding it together with my tweezers. For my shaker, I'm going to use some Simply Defined adhesive foam from Scrapbooking Made Simple, and I'm going to trace out the foam using the layers for my card, and I'm going to make them a little bit smaller so I have room for the shaker to fit into the middle. It is a little bit hard to cut out adhesive foam because it likes to stick to your scissors, but I'm going to go ahead and cut out those two layers to go to my pieces that I have cut out using the card layer dies. Now I'm going to stamp my sentiment, and I'm going to use a sentiment that says Happy Birthday Dude, and I'm going to emboss it on this little black banner that I cut out using the card layer dies. I'm going to use Versamark ink, and then I'm going to emboss it using white embossing powder. Now I'm going to use my heating tool to emboss the sentiment. I'm going to use sheet protector plastic to make the pouch for my shaker. I'm going to use that center diagonal piece from the card mat layers, or the card layer dies, and to size the plastic. I'm going to tape it in place so that it doesn't move around, and I'm going to use my my cut tool to go ahead and cut through the plastic, and it cuts very, very easily. So I want my shaker to be bigger than the opening, probably about 1/4 to 1/3 inch around all sides, except for the side I want to line up with that card layer. I heat up the fuse tool, and then I always do a practice run on a piece of scrap sheet protector to make sure that it's warm enough to actually seal my piece, because I don't want to ruin that piece that I have sized for my card. Once I have it nice and hot, I'm going to go ahead and use that metal tool to line it up. I use the edge though because I want to see exactly where the line is going, and using that center cut in that metal piece kind of hides it. You want to make sure that you seal 3 different sides of your shaker pouch, and then you can add the sequins. I refer back to my card layers to see the size that I need my shaker pouch to be. And as I'm sizing it up, I'm realizing that that one side is a little bit too close to the edge and I want to bring it in just a little bit more, so I go ahead and do a second seal on the inside. Once I'm happy with the size of my shaker, I'm going to go ahead and fill it with this sequin mix that I made, and I used random sequins from my stash to coordinate with that happy birthday paper from Doodlebug. And the more sequins you add, the more tightly packed it's going to be. If you want the sequins to shake around, then you will add less. So I'm going to go ahead with my fuse tool over that sealed side just to add the stitch so that it matches the opposite side. And then I'm going to tape it down so that I can line up where I want that stitch to be on that 4th side of my shaker. And you kind of have to hold the ruler up at an angle once you have the sequins in when they're packed like I have them. I'm going to go ahead and adhere the foam to my layered pieces, and you're going to see that there is that gap because I did make the pieces shorter than the actual piece of cardstock. And so I'm going to be adding adhesive to hold that shaker in place. I'm using double-sided sticky tape on the edges of my shaker pouch. And then I'm also going to add the double-sided tape to that little gap that I have left to hold the top of the sequin pouch. So once I have all my adhesive down, I'm going to go ahead and put it together. I'm going to start by adding that bottom layer of foam. Then I'm going to tuck my little shaker pouch in. And because I have adhesive on the shaker pouch and the cardstock above it, it's going to hold it snug in place. And then now I'm going to finish it off by adding that last piece of the foam. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to my card base. So I'm going to use my ATG gun to add that layer. And then I'm also going to add some double-sided sticky tape to my banner sentiment and to my image to get it adhered on there. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that little bow on there because I don't want it to fall off, and that wet glue definitely holds it better. So once I have my image in place and my sentiment in place, I'm going to go ahead and decorate the inside of my card just with a simple layer and a sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this "Wishing you a special birthday" using a Jaded Blossom stamp set. I'm going to heat dry it because I did use the VersaFine ink. Now I'm going to adhere it to the center of my card. And it is finished. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you liked my card. I want to thank you so much for watching. And until next time, happy crafting everyone. Bye-bye.